the wedding and then.
Okay, I think Mr. Willie's still having an issue.
Where's she?
Still? Why is it?
It's great.
I know. It's just like, really, why?
Just move. Chases. So we got together.
Make sure I don't start writing on
No, you're
something that's
fine.
not mine.
You're welcome to start writing on
Same
it.
time.
Oh,
So
I've been known.
family reunion. 7.
Okay.
I was 17. Everyone.
I'd stay there for you.
So
Oh, yes. Was it,
it's a lot.
No.
Oh, mine is here.
Boma?
As an annual pass holder, it counts. So it's like,
Well, it doesn't look like I'm gonna have. It's good to see you again.
Joe Henderson?
Yeah, so she's gonna go get a new keyboard, so we're gonna wait before, until she comes in, or should we start?
we will wait. She needs to be streaming. And
Oh, okay. See, hear that? What?
Sure did. Okay, not counting.
Morning, Gwen.
He was a guy. I'm actually 18 after like a few hearings on AP.
I should. The thing is, they randomly shooting, not just on video. Shooting.
They're here.
I'm not just doing
The politician. Talking to yes and everything.
exactly.
My keyboard's not working, so we have to wait until I get a new keyboard.
State code.
having technical issues, Stuart. So,
IT's aware, I presume.
oh yeah.
I'm sorry.
Apologize for the mix-up.
Well, that was me. I was telling her, I'm like, I can't.
Not happy with that answer at all.
No worries at all.
Doing excellent. How are you, Stuart?
Good. I presume y'all have met, right?
Oh yeah, a couple meetings ago.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah,
Since we haven't been.
Massachusetts. In Congress in Massachusetts. State houses.
It's going to impact me.
Maybe 5
And that's what he sent me.
Yeah, which is fine. I can read it and hopefully.
very,
I just didn't know if you would see it.
You know, change. I think so.
well, they have a state auditor.
It should, because I don't know why they only have South Daytona here, but we're in the service area. They provide water up to the avenue.
She is
Shores Resort.
state.
Shores Resort. It's Daytona
So
water.
they provide water.
Staff.
And draw staying here.
She's actually going to
Expect.
do.
Have a
This is the state
I
auditor.
don't know if it's social media friendly.
No worries.
So after this, maybe we can just get together.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry about that.
These are brand new keyboards.
Hey, Rick, you really need one of those?
Yeah, apparently.
I'll get you through the meeting.
Thank you.
I'm working on it. Use your address.
This one.
I mean, yeah, they keep kicking it back. Everything. Addresses that I have in for 30 years. Similar.
Thank you.
I'm still working on it. Writing them down.
No, we don't need this.
Oh, I thought you were gonna tell us.
Me too. We'll talk about that after.
Okay,
I don't, that's not my favorite.
I'll pay it.
Even so.
Oh, okay. Running late. Mr. Chairman,
Yes, we're getting on the technical issue resolved.
IT had to go back and keyboard and I just
yeah,
kidding.
she got it from,
If we don't start at the specific time that the meeting was set for, they have to sort of reset a new meeting.
yeah.
So it takes a couple. You know, maybe I should hold those flyers after all.
Alrighty.
All set?
Meeting will come to order. Sorry for the delay. We had technical difficulty. Keyboard was not working. So good morning, everyone. Thank you, Chris. Sherry, do you want to do a roll call?
Chairman DeLonge,
Here.
Vice Chair Desai,
Here.
Mr. Horian,
Here.
Mr. Pollard, Mr. Miller. Yep. Mr. Monaco.
Here.
Thank you. And we move on for the minutes. Everybody had an opportunity to review the minutes from April 20th? Do we have a motion?
I make a motion to accept the minutes of the meeting.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Chris, thank you. You need a roll call?
Okay.
Or do you want me to do it in the computer?
I'm doing it on the computer, so you should all get a box that
Uh-huh.
says to vote,
Yeah.
either yes or no. Okay. Would you... So, say, and then you need to say save, sir. Okay. And you don't have, you're still trying to sign in?
Yeah,
All right,
All set?
well, I've got 2 votes, 2 out of the 5.
Do you want to do it verbally until we get this figured out?
Sure, yep, okay. So, all in favor, say aye for the minutes.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Thank you. Technology, what can I tell you? We're trying to work through it. Or is it us? We'll find out. So the first item is a quasi judicial hearing. And first of all, want to indicate or ask if there was any ex parte communication by any member?
No.
Alrighty. Counsel, is there anything else?
Yes, because this is a quasi-judicial in nature presentation, we're going to go through the same rules for quasi-judicial proceedings to remind everyone of the procedures. So this quasi-judicial in nature requires our public hearing to comply with certain procedural requirements under Florida law. Quasi-judicial proceedings are less formal than proceedings before a circuit court, but they're more formal than city council meetings or other types of meetings, and so we need to follow basic standards of notice and due process. This includes noting that only competent, substantial, fact-based testimony or evidence can be considered by the board in deciding the quasi-judicial matters on today's agenda. So pure speculation or mere opinion, not based on competent facts, cannot be legally considered by this board in weighing the appropriateness of the application. Any kind of citizen testimony with fact-based support, such as minutes, surveys, engineering reports, personal observations or knowledge, and so on, will be considered competent and substantial evidence. But if you intend to speak or offer testimony, please keep this in mind. Finally, when you approach the podium to speak on a quasi-judicial matter, please state your name, your complete physical and mailing address, whether you live in this city, and whether or not you have been sworn in. And we'll take a moment to swear everyone in at the end of these procedural instructions. All comments and presentations other than those on behalf of the applicant or the city will be limited to 3 minutes. Only one presentation per person, and the time cannot be traded to others to increase the 3-minute limit. We've already discussed conflicts of interest, or rather we discussed ex parte disclosure. For conflicts of interest, if any council members or board members have any conflicts of interest that would impact their ability to hear this application, now is the time to disclose. No conflicts of interest. Okay, at this point, it would be appropriate to swear in any witnesses who intend to make a statement today. And if you don't swear in now, but you decide you'd like to make a statement later, that's fine. Just when you come up, please take a moment to go through the swearing in process again.
Okay, so if anyone wishes to speak today, please stand up now. Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth during today's proceedings?
I do.
Here's procedure.
Thank you. All righty, go in.
Okay. Good morning, Chairman Delange, Vice Chairman Horion, and Zona Boardman. Gwen Herstein, for the record, City Planner.
Yeah, microphone? Thank you.
Would you like good mornings again? Gwen Herstein, City Planner. This agenda item is to consider regular site plan RSP-A25-0008 for an 86-unit residential condominium, the name for which is currently 3411 South Atlantic Avenue, a condominium. The location, as we've already discussed, 3411 South Atlantic Avenue. I have some slides to show you exactly where that is. Owner is Daytona Valor Capital, LLC. And this is for a property, a development property of approximately 1.05 acres. And there is 200 feet of A1A frontage.
Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you.
Seems all technology is acting up today.
At least it's consistent. Again, this is a multifamily residential property on a high-intensity future land use property. Currently, it's a vacant lot, and I'll show you a picture of what it looks like today. And again, this is for an 86-unit multifamily residential condominium with 16 stories plus 2 parking levels with a mezzanine. This is the location of the site. It's approximately 1.5 miles south of our current location, and it takes about 4 minutes to get there, depending on whether you adhere to traffic rules. This is an aerial view of the site. You'll notice this was back in 2023, and this was, while a substantial portion, almost a third of the portion of the lot had been excavated away after the 2022 hurricanes. Here's a more recent picture. This was taken last year, and it shows what the lot looks like today. It has a railing you can see in the back over a seawall that is holding everything in. Here are some west elevation views, proposed views during the day and at night. And here's a proposed southeast elevation view, so basically from the beach, just south of the property, looking back toward it. You'll see that it's not a box, but has that carve out, which we'll see again in some overhead images. This is the ground level of the site plan, and it's a good way to sort of look at what's happening in the building. I'll take you first through the blue arrows. That is the drive path. So you pull into the property where the circle is, towards the left lower corner. That's the entrance. You then can only turn left around that front entrance under a porte cochere, and then you can either exit to the left back onto A1A, or you can travel down where you see that other blue arrow and that takes you down to the basement level of parking. There are also a few where it didn't make an arrow, but you could also continue just a little bit to the upper right, and there are parking spaces, including an ADA space on this level. The pink arrows give you an idea of where corners are at this level of the building. The yellow arrow down toward the bottom is the public access area, and I've got it in both like a purple and then an aqua. The purple is all inside, and the aqua is an exterior level. It's multiple levels of features that are accessible to the public. I will tell you that the interior portion is planned to be used as retail and or restaurant, and they have, I'll show you in a bit, that they have, depending on which way they want to go, if they decide to go all restaurant, they do have the parking planned in place to accommodate that, or if they decide to go all retail, they still have the parking to accommodate that, or any combination thereof. I think they're still working out exactly how they plan to use that area. And perhaps when they make their presentation, they'll tell you. This is a typical residential floor. I say typical, there are 13 of these floors. And you can see how I've put the pink corners in place to show you where the building is. Anything outside of those areas are balconies. 13 of these floors, there are 6 units per typical floor. And then there are 2 additional penthouse floors. They have 8 more units to be divided up among those 2 floors. The summary analysis, it's a residential condominium, which is an allowable use. Building height, as we said, was 16 plus 2 parking floors and a mezzanine as part of that parking. As I said before, 161 spaces is what they're proposing, and 133 spaces is the requirement with just the residential. That leaves them 28 spaces to do what they'd like, as I already alluded to with or spoke about with the retail and or retail and or restaurant component. The setbacks have all been met. Some of those setbacks I have asterisks with because they are not meeting the land development code per se, but they're meeting the development agreement, which you may recall having reviewed and recommended approval for previously. So they have met all of the either land development code requirements or comprehensive plan requirements and the development agreement requirements. Talking landscape, they were required to install 18 trees. They have met that tree requirement with palms, and if you remember, a tree is equal to 3 palms. So they met that tree requirement with 18 times 3 plus in palms, but then above that, they have 78 other trees that they're planning to place here. Now, not all of them are of the exact height requirement. The height requirement upon planting from grade is 8 feet, and some of the trees that they're proposing to plant are between 6 and 8 feet, and in some cases between 5 and 6 feet. But they're very close to having a full other they will have 78 other trees, some of which will also qualify as trees, but they have exceeded, is what I'm trying to say, the landscape requirements, and especially with the number of trees. Here's the analysis. Proposing 39 trees, required is 18. They have a tree mix of 5 of just those palms, and they were only required to have 2 different species. Once you add in the other 78 trees that will be planted, they're adding another 5 species, basically. The green area exceeds what was agreed upon in the development agreement. The buffering does the same, and even though it's only one 1 foot in places on the north property line. There are other places, half of it that exceeds and is back to the typical requirement of 5 feet of buffering. There are 3 conditions for items which have not been fully addressed yet, that are in the works. And as you may recall, the first condition and second condition too, the first condition was required the last time we reviewed the site plan together and requested your recommendation, in that we were waiting for Port Orange, the city of Port Orange, who is the water supplier for this property, to give us a letter that signs off on the project having the level of service standards, being able to meet the level of service standards for the water supply. Part of the reason that I think that's happened twice, I think it's basically they're waiting on some additional tests that have to happen, that happen a little bit later in the process than this step necessarily. So it's possible that this may be a recurrent condition on other properties, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about this one. It's a condition that we'd like you to recommend that must be met before construction can begin and before the site plan is approved. The second condition will allow the concurrency certification to be complete. Basically, when step 1 is complete and compliant, step 2 can be signed off on as well. The third is a different situation. FEMA approval is necessary still. Basically, some of this property has been identified as a special flood hazard area, and that may be something that can be removed by FEMA. The property never had a seawall until now, and so that can be removed. Possibly, it's not up to us to decide or the state, it's at the national level. That approval, that request has been made and that approval is currently being sought. If it's not approved, what would have to happen to meet this condition, meaning if the special flood hazard area stays in place, another alternative is that the engineering and the design could be reworked to treat the special flood hazard area of the property in that manner and build it out differently to accommodate that, though that's not what we're expecting will happen, but we don't have that approval at this time. So those are the 3 conditions that we're requesting. And it can be done as simply, well, I say simply, it's not simple to the folks working on it, but a letter from FEMA can basically amend or revise the designation on the property. So it can be as simple as a letter from them, but I think the folks from the project will tell you that it's not that simple. Additional requirements, the comprehensive plan. This project is consistent with it. Public notice requirements have been met. The requisite staff review has been done. The staff analysis and exhibits have been submitted for the record, and the staff's recommendation today is that the Planning and Zoning Board recommends approval conditionally as presented for conditions 1, 2, and 3. And I will take questions, but we definitely have representation from the property, including the project applicant and an owner, at least one owner representative, and I'm sure they will have lots of answers that I might not get.
Thank you, Gwen. Anybody has questions for Gwen?
I always do. I enjoyed going through the plans. They were very, very detailed. A couple of questions I have is that the intersection to the south of it, I'm not a really big fan of 2 entrances to the property that close to Dunlawton Boulevard, as the condo to the south of this property creates a problem with its entrance. Nothing we can do about that. I understand now, knowing where this property is, it's farther away from Dunlawton and A1A, which them trying to do what they want to do on this property, I can understand the two entrance exit, egress, ingress. So I have not really a problem with that. I am a little concerned when you come up the south entryway from the basement, I think it is, and you come out the ramp, there's a monument sign sitting right there. And it's 6 foot high, 8 foot wide, and I was wondering if that can't be moved to the middle of the island area between the two ingress egress. I'm fearing that somebody coming out of there, especially an older person, is going to have a difficulty seeing traffic going up because a lot of that traffic zooms through there because they're irritated at getting on the A1A. And I wondered if that might cause a problem with the design of the building or cause a problem with anything else on it. My other question is, coastal construction setback line, to me, looked like it went through the building. Are all the setbacks required by our code and state on this property?
Yes, sir. As to your second question. As to your first question, I spent in total probably 2 hours just on that one little section of the plan to make sure that site triangles were going to be met. The position of that sign has changed somewhat on the part of the applicant.
From the plans?
From the original iteration, because this is the third submission. Basically, or rather, this last is the fourth submission, the first version. So it has angled somewhat and been made even more acceptable, but that was a concern, and site triangles can be met by its placement. I agree with you. I kept looking at it saying, how can that be? But it is in an acceptable position, but the applicant is here, and certainly that's a question you can ask of them if you're asking that they eliminate the possibility of that. That's for you to suggest of them, and they may agree to it, or they may be able to better explain why that's the best position for the sign. It does meet our codes. It's close.
Well, this is a very aggressive plan for that property, and I wish them well. Okay, I think it's be a plus to this community. I'm not going to be able to afford it, but I think it will be maybe by the time they get it underground, what, 29?
They can answer that better for you.
And longer if they need it. Okay. Thank you, Gwen.
Absolutely, sir. Any more questions?
A couple questions. One is, I thought I read somewhere in here about a beach club, but question is this a public beach club that people would buy membership to? Is it open to everyone, or is it just for residents, or just?
I will table that. I've brought the slide up so they can refer to it in that turquoise area. I'll table that, but that would be an appropriate question to ask the applicant. They aren't required to have that available to the public. Parts in the purple, they are required by development agreement to have open to the public. So this is an additional amenity that they're opening, but that question that you have is perfectly appropriate to ask the applicant.
Yeah, because, I mean, if they can sell membership and now your parking is limited and you sell 1,000 memberships, it's got to create more traffic for the site. Second question is regarding in the civil plans, one of the engineering notes was the exfiltration and trench drain procedures, which are called out. There's 6 of them there. And those are the only things that kind of go on in perpetuity after this. And when if the condo gets turned over to HOAs, sometimes they don't always follow the guidelines that the civil engineer put in, and that exfiltration system doesn't live up to what's expected. How can we ensure that ongoing there's some type of this maintenance procedure is done, and not 5-10 years from now when it backs up because they didn't follow the procedures?
What you're describing is an issue for just about every property that we have. Those systems have to be maintained. If they have a special plan for how they plan to do it, then they can share that with you, but otherwise it does become a code enforcement issue down the line, or other type of city issue where we're asking them to address drainage issues that they're having down the road.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? I have a question for you. Can you explain the difference between the potable water, why is Port Orange not yet approving that, but yet they're approving the sewage and waste and drainage? I don't quite understand that.
We actually, as a city, have sewer lines that will take the sewage away. So sewage is approved at the city level, our level. Port Orange is the water supplier, so they're the ones that have to demonstrate to us that this project will not cause any undue burdens to their system, that their system has the capacity for it and can fully supply it. But those are different people who approve it, and the one that is within the city is a much quicker approval. Stuart handles that. He's our concurrence manager.
So any other reasons why did they say they haven't been approved so far?
I didn't dig in as much because I remembered it from last time, and it was with another site plan approval that they waited to give that final letter to us, and it was a factor of certain pieces not being in place for them to test yet, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Is that going to hold up other projects as well?
That's a question that I've had. I've seen it, the two site plans that I've been involved in, I've seen it both times. After this project, it's a good idea probably for us to reach out to Port Orange and just discuss with them.
Clarification.
Maybe there are 2 parts that they can give us. This could be done in 2 parts. So maybe we can request that first one if they're able to give that to us for you to review, and then have only the second part left as a condition.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I apologize
Stuart?
for interrupting. I believe the engineer of record, whenever is the applicant's opportunity to speak, I believe he might be able to speak a little bit more about this because he's dealing with Port Orange directly on a day-to-day basis regarding this project.
Thank you, Stuart. I had a second question. The parking situation. I read where it said it was going to be stacked. Was that side by side or one in front of the other? That was one of my questions about, because it didn't really clarify which kind of stacking was going to be used.
The tandem spaces are in front of and behind.
Okay.
And this property, as I understand it, the applicant can confirm that this whole garage will be valet.
The whole garage, even for owners?
They can answer that when they come up, but that's my understanding. There are only 6 of those tandem spaces, and so it's, but I believe that those would be handled in that manner. And they can tell you if they plan to do it in a different way.
All righty.
Is this a group out of Tampa? Development coming out of Tampa?
They do have projects, which I'll let them tell you more about, but in St. Pete and Clearwater.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely. And across the continent and
International, yeah.
international, thank you.
Righty, any
I'm not
other?
doing them justice. I'd love for them to be able to tell you.
Thank you, Gwen. Any other question? All right. Do we have anybody else that would like to do a presentation on the project? If you could state your name.
And members of the board, my name is Joe Hopkins. I'm engineer of record with Performance Group. Our office is at 100 Marina Point Drive in Daytona Beach. Gwen's a tough act to follow. I mean, her presentation really sums up everything that we're proposing here. 2 years ago, you guys had the opportunity to review this in the way of the development agreement. And as Gwen pointed out, we are totally within our lane and complying with all the conditions that was set forth in that development agreement. I don't have anything more to add to the presentation, but what I would like to do is address a couple of the comments and questions that y'all have raised, and then open it up to any other questions you may have. I've got representatives of the development team with me. I'm the engineer. We've got land use attorney and ownership reps as well. Mr. Lilly, regarding the access, the southerly driveways is set up as a kind of a speed entrance, so we can receive vehicles at a very fast rate off of northbound A1A into the site. So the southerly drive is strictly only an in route. The northerly driveway is actually two-way entrance. It's an entrance and an exit. But that southerly driveway, the way it's designed with the curvilinear movement, is to accelerate vehicles off of A1A. So it's a I'm sensitive to the fact that we're close to Atlantic Avenue. There's also a bus stop that's right in front of our property. We've been in discussion with Votran to have that moved a little bit further north so that there's less of an opportunity for backups coming off of Dunlawton with the northbound traffic. With regard to the CCCL, we are working with the Department of Environmental Protection currently. We have an application before them, and we are very attuned to their rules and regulations, and we are very confident that we can comply with everything that the state has. This is in conjunction with the FDEP application. There's an application with the Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission. That's with regard to turtle lighting. So those reviews are done in tandem at the state level. And as I said, those applications are currently under review. The comment about this being an aggressive plan, it's probably one of the most dynamic I've ever worked on. And I've had the privilege of permitting a number of condominiums here in the Shores over the years. And it is aggressive, but it's an outstanding piece of work. The design team is made up of international architects, and the talent level that we have brought to the table for this project is something. It's a reward for me, to be honest with you. It's something different, something the Shores probably has never seen before, and it's just a downright exciting project for us. So your comment with regard to the beach club and the restaurant, I'm going to let ownership respond to that. That's kind of an operational aspect that's dynamic at this point. I don't think all the decisions have been made, but they can elaborate on that in just a second. The exfiltration system that we have designed, we do identify those maintenance standards, but there's also conditions. The stormwater system goes through a review with the Department of Environmental Protection of Orlando. And there are conditions that are going to be placed on that permit with regard to operation and maintenance. There's also reports that need to be filed on annual or biannual basis. So there, I feel confident that there's a system of checks and balances to ensure that the exfiltration system works as intended. In addition to that, we're going to be around elevation 22, if I'm not mistaken, and we based on the design of the project, we're not going to be receiving a lot of wind-blown sand. The height of the seawall and our position north of the Dunlawton approach, we won't get sand drift like you see in and around that immediate area. So I don't think we're going to be subject to a lot of sand drift, a lot of sand coming into the system, but we will ensure that it's operated, maintained, and monitored for compliance. The issue with Port Orange is twofold. One, we requested a concurrency letter from them. We know that they have available capacity. They have an obligation to serve the city of Daytona Beach Shores, this sector of the city of Daytona Beach Shores. What they requested of us was flow rates for the fire flow system. And that request is something that is generally developed a little further down the line, not at the site plan level, but at the building design level. So the team has been working on that, and we feel pretty confident that we'll be able to turn those numbers over to Port Orange, but they were resistant to give us a concurrency letter until they saw the flow rate for the fire system in conjunction with the potable demand that the project's going to require. Those numbers, the potable demand numbers have been presented to them. We also conducted a fire hydrant flow test, and the numbers are off the chart. So there's definitely available flow rate. We know that they have available capacity, and they're just holding back a little bit until they see the actual numbers and can confirm that they can meet our adequate demand. So that's in process. I have no reservation about that, that we're going to get that as we go forward. The condition, that was the one condition. The second or third condition is with regard to the FEMA approval. There was a seawall on the property before. In 22, it got knocked down. And for some reason, and I cannot explain it. This particular property was remapped by FEMA immediately after the storm. So the V zone, if you will, which is the flood zone from the ocean, is mapped now a third of the way into the property after the seawall failed. So we are going through what's called a map amendment to have that V zone removed from the property back to the face of the seawall. And the seawall, as I said, as Lynn said, we do have a brand new seawall there. It was designed for a 100-year storm event. The elevations are set at around 11.4, 11.5, which is well above the flood zone in that immediate area. So it's a procedure. We don't know why we were isolated as being one of the only properties with a failed seawall that got remapped, but that's the cards that have been dealt to us, and we're going to deal with them accordingly. So that application is currently under review with FEMA at the federal level, and we're very confident that we'll get that approved. That's the comments that you raised. If there's any questions specific for me, I'd be happy to answer them. Darius is here with Valor. He can talk about some operational aspects if you'd like to discuss those, and if there's any other questions, I'd be happy to entertain.
I had a question about the parking specifically, because that is a little bit of a concern for me, is the parking access. You're going to have how many units, how many condominium units are you going to have in that building?
86.
Okay, and that, how many parking spaces are you going, is it on paper for? How many parking spaces?
131 dedicated to the residential component.
And out of that 131, how many, it's 2 per owner?
I believe we have a little bit less than 2 spaces per owner. We're a little bit below that number.
I read somewhere that it was going to be 2 spaces for owners, and then the math didn't add up. That's why I was asking, because on the documents, I read somewhere there was going to be 2 spaces for owners, and then when I did the math, it didn't come up to 2. That was just my question of clarification. That's why I asked about stacking. If it's a tandem parking, did that arrive afterwards? Because I don't remember the tandem parking in the very beginning of that when we first approved it.
No, we had some stalls that were tandem, and those would be assigned to an individual unit owner, so that that particular unit owner would have 2 stalls.
So is that counted as 2 or 1? That's my question.
Stalls. 2 stalls. They're 2 vehicle positions, and they're stacked nose to tail, tail to nose.
And everything is going to be valet, even the owners?
All the public access is going to be valet. As far as operations, we can talk about that a little bit more. I don't believe a final decision has been made that all of the residential parking is going to be valet. That's an operational aspect I think Darius can maybe shed some light on. But all public access is going to be valet.
Having lived in the shores, in a condominium on the beach for 11 plus years, parking has always been an issue. It's something you don't see until you actually build and live it and understand visitors and deliveries and everything else. And that's my only concern about your very nice project. That's one of my concerns about it's the limitation of parking and access. Even though I did notice which section is the access to the beach, the public access to the beach. Is it on the north side or the south side?
It's on the south side. It's in conjunction. We have the restaurant on the south side, and there is an outdoor area associated with that will be public access.
So in theory, an individual can go to your restaurant and then go out the walkway into the beach?
I don't believe the beach access is going to be for the public.
Tied in with the restaurant?
No, we're going to be afforded probably 1 beach access, and that'll be for the beach club for the residents of the condominium.
Say that again?
The Department of Environmental Protection is going to allow us 1 beach access.
Yeah.
That will be located on the north side of the project, exclusively exclusively for the use of the residents.
Not public.
So that the ramp that's on the documents that you guys are going to build and maintain has access, public access to reach that ramp, does it not?
No, sir, it does not.
Okay. So where is the public beach access then?
In the development agreement, there was some discussion about that. We have an option of making a payment in lieu of constructing beach access. There's also a provision in the Land Development Code that states that if there's one in reasonable proximity, we're not required to construct one. So, go ahead, sir.
Sure. Stuart?
Stuart Cruz, Community Services Director. So that's a really, really good question, and I'm really glad that you actually caught that. So in the development agreement, as the project engineer Joe Hopkins just mentioned, the development agreement provides the opportunity for the applicant, the developer, to either build a public beach access that you typically see with every development here in Daytona Beach Shores, or in lieu of that, if it meets certain standards, meaning it's within, the project site is within another beach access, 1,000 feet of another beach access, instead of actually having to build that public beach access, they can actually not build it, but in turn provide to the development fund that we have, the redevelopment fund for public beach access within the city of Daytona Beach Shores. And so it's my understanding that that is the option that the applicant developer will be taking. So they will not be building it, they will be taking the second option, which is essentially contribute monies in kind, not in kind, but monies to the redevelopment fund for public beach access for existing beach accesses throughout the city. And that is going to be considered by the City Commission. It's within the authority of the City Commission. It's within the city's land development code and the development agreement for the City Commission to make that waiver.
Thank you for clarification, because it wasn't clear when I read the document, so I appreciate that clarification.
Thank you.
I got one other question.
All right.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I got one other question. This is probably trivia, but where are the trash cans going to be hauled to get emptied?
We have a receiving area on the northwest corner of the property, and I mean, the cans are actually interior to the garage area,
Yeah.
and those will be rolled out very similar to all the other properties within the shores.
That's unfortunate.
Well, Waste Pro has adopted that as their operational mode. I mean, they go down the northbound lane and bring those trash cans onto A1A, empty them, and move on down.
Well, I know that. I've lived here 40 years, I know that. That's always a problem with traffic.
Well, fortunately, they do it mostly in the morning, but that's their operation, and I think they just...
It's a shame they couldn't have put it on the property and pull into, like some of the properties, condos up and down through here, have little accesses where they empty deliveries. You know, it'd be nice if you could have had that. But it's just wishful thinking on a resident's part.
Thank you for your clarifications. Any other questions? If you want to continue with the presentation, if you can state your name and position.
Darius.
Thank you.
Hello, Darius Wilhare. I am a representative of Valor. I do not live in the Shores. I live over near Dunedin.
Excuse me, if you don't mind.
Yes.
Were you sworn in when you came in? I don't think he was sworn in, if I recall.
All right, if you raise your hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth during today's hearing?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So I know there's been a couple questions. Also, thank you, Joe, for your kind comments on the project. I think it's important that we also mention that there has been a design partner throughout this entire project, which can kind of seem invisible, but is very much present in the building, and that is the community itself. Even the shape of the building has been influenced by the community, by our neighbors, by our feedback, and also everywhere we can, we have worked to make this a better project, because we don't want to be contentious developers. We want to develop what's wanted in a community that wants us. It has been a fantastic process. Even the parking, you know, as we finished the last version of the design and the restaurant, which I'll get to in a moment, you know, we talked to our neighbors in Towers 10, and they're like, is there any way you can fit more parking in so we make sure that someone doesn't try to go to your restaurant and park on our property? So then I challenged our design team, and again, they went back, they figured how to move things, how to, while meeting all the conditions of the development agreement, go back and redesign the building final time to sort of make sure that request, because it will make it not just a better building for our residents, but also the community. So I know we have a few people from Towers 10 here. That entire building has really been a great ally in the process of bringing a product that's going to work. To answer on the restaurant beach club, sometimes in plans you can have marketing speak that makes its way into a set of plan and just kind of lives there for years. So that whole area, again, was part of the initial talk to the city of what was the public benefit of this project to create such an aggressive thing. And it was, you know, in talking to, well, I would say hundreds of neighbors and, you know, within 400 feet of our building, it was always, first it was, is it a coffee shop or is it a restaurant or wine bar? And then the unanimous vote at the end was, we want both. So we designed the building for public benefit at that level. So there's not a beach club per se, and what it is, it's the terrace of the restaurant. You have to the top of the building up on the north, that is the owner's terrace. So we did argue for many times to get 2 entrances and 2 ramps to be able to allow access to the beach so that people who are coming to the restaurant can also go down to the beach if they wanted to. In the end, we have not been able to get that, so we determined that the best use for the 1 access is for the ultimate owners of the building, just like all the other condos along the beach to have their private access. But we are not selling memberships to that restaurant. That's not the intent of it. And what I can tell you is that I know that the brand has already been announced internationally. And one of the fantastic things of that brand is the talent that it attracts. So I can say that we're talking to operators and potential, you know, restaurants for that area, both locally and internationally, to bring something that the Shores is going to be really proud of. I think there's a lot of great places to visit in the Shores already, but we want to bring something that potentially people might have to drive elsewhere to go now that they have it here. On the monument sign, what I can say is we will never make safety an issue. So if that is a concern, we will make sure that it meets the sight lines, and in the end, we'll make sure that it is a safe point of ingress and egress. That is just, at the end, nobody wants anybody to have an accident. That is the worst possible thing for the community, it's the worst possible thing for a developer, and it's the worst possible thing for our residents. So we will absolutely make sure that that is not an issue. If it has to come down in height, if it has to move, or not, whatever is needed to make it safe, we will do that. So I think those were the primary questions. You know, other than that, I just want to say thank you. It's been a pleasure working to do this. It has not been easy. We have that international pool of talent is, and you know, our brand partner has brought a level of design to this that you really won't find until you hit Miami. And we really believe in Daytona Beach Shores and the project that we're doing to help kind of usher in like a new era of revitalization in the area, and to also create a boom for small and medium businesses along the A1A. So we're excited about it. It's definitely, I think the project speaks for itself, but if there are any other questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you for your presentation and your commitment. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
There isn't anybody else who would like to talk about the project, for or against? Anybody in the audience? No? All righty. Gwen, any additional presentation?
No, sir, I'm simply resetting this for your vote.
Thank you very much. Having said that, do I hear a motion to pass this order?
I move to recommend approval of the regular site plan RSP 825-0008 with the conditions presented.
I'll second.
Thank you. Terry, are we doing this electronically or verbally?
I'll do it verbally, sir.
All righty.
I want to verify, was that Mr. Pollard who did the seconds?
No.
Mr. Desai, okay. Thank you. All right. Mr. Talange?
Yes.
Mr. Desai?
Yes.
Mr. Horian?
Yes.
Mr. Lilly?
Yes.
Mr. Pollard?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you. Now, to move on, the action items. Gwen? Ordinance 2026-05.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Vice Chair Horian, board members, let me get to the slide. Gwen Herstein, City Planner. So, just to set up the background for this proposed ordinance, in the late 90s, there was a movement, basically, in the city to minimize the impact of special events. And, you know, coming from Daytona Beach and all the people that came to the area, it was, some would have said at the time, traumatizing to the city. So there was an effort to minimize that. And one of the ways that the city approached that was with a wide net, which included rather restrictive temporary sign options. People who normally held all of their business inside would open their doors and hang things outside just to take advantage of the folks that were here. And so the temporary sign codes and displays were quite restricted during that movement. Basically, current goals of the city rely in part on attracting businesses and eliminating where possible barriers to their success. This A-frame sign ordinance addresses one of the most often requested sign elements in a manner that attempts to maintain the life safety element, which is primary, but also to maintain an attractive aesthetic, which is why there are so many but like this, but like this, but like this, and we're going to go through those together. The city will be, is planning to undertake an entire sign code overhaul in the next 4 to 5 months, but this relief was requested by multiple businesses to happen sooner. And when businesses come and establish, and we want them to be able to stay, and that's something that has been a challenge, which we're actively working as a city to overcome. So this is ordinance number 2026-05, and it's to both create a definition for an A-frame sign and also to allow daily A-frame signs at Daytona Beach Shores businesses. There are 6 slides that talk about verbiage. I don't plan to read it to you. I'm confident that you've read it to yourself, but please feel free to stop and we can talk about them, or we'll come back at the end and go back to any of these slides that you'd like to specifically talk about language for or ask questions about. So this is the proposed definition. An A-frame sign is a ground-based, freestanding, movable sign comprised of 2 sign faces or panels joined at the top, which resembles then the letter A shape and profile. A-frame signs are also known as sandwich board signs. That is the proposed definition. We didn't have one in the code previously. And then it starts into, as a permitted sign, section 6-8 in our sign code is permitted signs, and it talks about the different things that can be done or must be done in order to meet the criteria. Because basically what we're saying here is you get the permit once for your A-frame sign, and we make sure that you are aware of locations, safe locations to put it in, that you're meeting criteria as to what it's made of and how are you going to weight it down, and are you aware that it has to be brought in at night and during inclement weather. The last thing that we want is an A-frame sign to have a wind gusting tumble into a pedestrian walkway, A1A, anywhere else, a window. So all of this was taken into consideration and weighed heavily, but we're here to weigh it a little more heavily. So basically, one A-frame sign may be placed after that permit that I just described is obtained. For a business, it has to have a certificate of use. It has to be an approved business to be operating in that location at every building or storefront. And in the GC categories, and I've listed them down, if you're not sure, that includes GC1, GC2, GCRD. Also mixed use, because there are businesses associated with mixed use, and then town center mixed-use planned unit developments as well. If they meet the criteria, was the last thing that we said, provided it meets the following criteria, and now we have a couple of slides worth of criteria. So basically, two-paneled, each side, and remember they have to be joined at the top, that's what makes the A, each side or face no larger than 6 square feet. A lot of them that are sold are 2 wide and 3 tall, right? The signs, frame-based supports, legs and feet, everything around, everything but the sign face itself needs to be made of metal, wood, or similar materials. The administrative official in this case is Stuart Cruz, our Director of Community Services, and but basically metal, wood, or similar materials. The sign faces, we even discussed that, to try to keep some uniformity to this so that there is some regularness, still stands out, says what the business would like it to say, but has a uniformity to it. They're either professionally printed, painted, also professionally painted, are chalkboards, or are a surface that are designed to accept chalkboards. And I do have some pictures of some that would fit into this criteria too, so that we can discuss them. To accept chalkboard markers, basically. Everybody's seen those chalkboard markers? They basically have that same effect on the face, sort of a muted but stay in place effect once they dry. The sign has to be placed within 12 linear feet of the front door of the business or elsewhere on the property as approved by the administrative official. And that is because it originally was going to be 12 feet to the door, so that it had sort of a tether to it. It needed to be near the business's door. However, every single business, as this was not a master planned community before it was begun, every single building's a little different, its circumstances are different, how far it is from the road is different, what it has on either side of it is different. So rather than make this so restrictive as to just leave it at, it has to be within 12 feet of every business's door, there's a little bit of an off-ramp to allow the flexibility that some properties are going to need. One of the next codes speaks about them not being closer than 4 feet to each other, and that's just to prevent a pileup. There may be one great place on a property that has 2 or 3 businesses, but rather than them all being piled one on another, they have to be 4 feet apart. So it's meant to give space and still give it an attractive appearance.
So excuse me.
Sure.
Just a clarification. So if a building has multiple businesses, we're allowing each business to have one A-frame sign? Is that what you're saying?
Within these parameters, yes.
Okay. And a question, because having heard you give this comment, the signs that we see up and down A1A from these condominium buildings that says, no beach parking, you'll be towed, it's literally a small A-frame. Are you telling me that those signs are illegal, that they really are, they were not in compliance with city ordinance?
While not responsible for code enforcement at this point, not involved in code enforcement, those signs, though the purpose is understood for them, are not exactly meeting code.
So you're saying that those signs were put without city approval?
I don't remember anybody approving any of those particular signs.
Because it seems like it's been...
We're talking about totally different...
Understood, but once you explain the A-frame signs and as such, first thing came to mind is all those no beach parking, you'll be towed, that we see along A1A. Stuart, if you want to address that, or?
Sure, thank you. So, Stuart Cruz, Community Services Director with the City of Dayton Beach Shores. So, the sign code that the cities have in Chapter 6 of the Land Development Code, encompasses a whole bunch of different entitlements and opportunities for signage, and one of them is internal circulation and public notification, for private properties and public properties. And so the intent of those signs that you're referring to, while that's not the subject of what we're discussing right now, is authorized under the city's code to some extent. They may not have been formally approved by the city, but the intent of the code is to provide for public notification, for internal circulation and public notices as well, regarding life, health, safety, and all the other nice things. So what I do want to share with you, and I'm sure Gwen was going to bring it up earlier, is that the city we have been charged, staff has been charged with revamping our entire sign ordinance. So this is just one aspect that we're doing right now, because we know this is a low-hanging fruit in which we can help businesses. Businesses have made it clear that they need additional assistance in these economic times to be assisted with as much as possible to be successful, and we want them to be successful. When the Valor Project and other projects come in line, we want to have successful businesses to the benefit of the entire community. And so this is just part of the process that we're doing right now to accomplish something really, really quick. But in the meantime, in the grander scheme of things, we'll be looking at a larger scale update to our sign code, which is not only going to include additional opportunities for businesses, but also going to include some of the signage that you're referring to.
Thank you for that clarification. Appreciate it, Stuart. Sorry for the interruption, but I just wanted clarification.
It's the way that I interpret the code and read the code, it is a size issue that is at play with the current A-frame signs that are being employed to direct people at entrances to a lot of condos. It's a size issue. So 12 feet within the front of the business or elsewhere as approved by the administrative official. And its placement cannot impede pedestrian accessibility, of course. I mean, we don't want to put a sign to attract customers who are then going to trip and fall, right? So that, again, is tricky. It depends on, is this near parking? Is it not near parking? Is it, and where is the parking? Is it coming from two different sides? So it's again, tricky, but there is the possibility for imagining this property by property. The other thing that this allows and that we envision is, rather than saying, here's your one location that you can utilize, we're all going to start tuning those out of our minds pretty quickly, is that you have location areas that you may utilize. If you wanted to put it in one spot for a week and then move it, it's also going to keep it fresh. They'll tidy up around it. It won't have weeds growing around it either. So that's a good, I think, helpful aspect to this. But that means when it's permitted, you're aware that you can utilize this box right here, which is 2 feet from this area. You can also utilize this other area, this whole strip here. But again, it has to be 4 feet from any others. So the sign cannot be placed, I'm at E now, on obviously any parking space, any drive path, any right-of-way, or within 2 feet of the property line. It has to stay on the property. It can't be on the sidewalk. It can't be even, the leg touching the sidewalk. It needs to be fully 2 feet back from the property line at all sides. And the signs can't be placed in any line of sight triangle. And that's going to be something that through the permitting process we support people with, because some people have heard of it, but they don't necessarily know what the dimensions that are required are. Overall sign components, we speak to that because there are things like handles and the sign frame, So it's, even though the sign face can only be 2 by 3, you've got other appurtenances that come with some of these signs, and they're all different. There are a lot available, but we gave a little extra allowance to accommodate that. No attachments. This is not meant to be a platform from which you then attract attention, eyes from the road, for example, or eyes from your walking in any other way, like spinners or balloons, etc. Sign cannot be used primarily as a help wanted sign. Primarily is 50%. It can't be used as nothing but a help wanted sign. It has to be doing something for your business. It could also be utilized for that, but it has to at least halfway be for the business itself as opposed to being a help wanted sign. You have to take the sign in when it's raining, when it's windy, and that's going to be people paying attention and watching what their sign can handle as far as wind and whatnot. Weighted anchor, there's a provision for that, and then there's a provision for the 4 feet that we talked about already. And that takes us A through K. Here are some examples of signs that meet the criteria that we've just discussed. 2 by 3 faces, they can be smaller, of course, if you don't want that big of a sign, it can be smaller, but metal or wood, and if it's wood look and it's a similar material, then that's going to be something that's acceptable too. This is after all of the criteria, this is more that adds to it. It basically says that they can be, once permitted, they can be placed daily without getting another permit. Currently, you pay for a banner, $56 for 30 days. Then you have to have 30 days banner free, and you can apply for another banner permit and pay another $56 for that next 30 days. So you'd have 30 days of banner if you so chose, 30 days without, and then you could have another banner for 30 days, and it's $56 each time. This ordinance is basically taking that second part of, the re-permitting part, it's taking away the fact that you have to get rid of it for 30 days. You can still have the sign up once you're approved, your sign is approved, the locations that you can use it are approved, then you can have it up daily until such time as you say, I really want to use this other location because something changed about the property and I want to know if I can do that. Or your sign starts to get deteriorated, or you want to try a different style and you go through a permit process again. Conceivably, you're permitting it once if you're taking care of it properly. An A-frame sign can also be revoked by the city. If you're leaving it up overnight, and there's the 3-strike policy, you could have your sign permit revoked, and then you could get another one, but it would be with us going back through the rules, and it's not something that we're trying to do to folks. We caught you. It's meant to be an educational component to explain why they're supposed to be taken inside, why they can't be out there when nobody's there to monitor them and pull them back in if we get a little bit of weather. But that does give us the option. If somebody is being careless with the sign, then they don't qualify to have this sign out daily. And so the permit can be revoked. Basically, we adjusted the table, and you saw a copy of the table. It's the top line now, or proposed to be the top line because it starts with an A, but it's with all of the different zoning districts listed and what kinds of signs you can have in each. Now, this is something that was discussed at length, this next part, Section 5, the sunset and termination. So I had already discussed that we are, in the next 4 to 5 months, and that means 4 months, hopefully having before you a revamp of our sign code. It needs to happen from a legal standpoint. It should happen from a current movement standpoint. But there may be things that come up that weren't imagined. We imagined a lot of things, and you may be imagining things too. But we imagined a lot of things, but there may be situations that arise that we want to deal with in the code about these A-frame signs. We also, it allows us more flexibility if maybe there's a pick two. Maybe you pick an A-frame sign and you pick a banner and you're allowed to do those 2 things at a time. But if we just leave this the way it is, without this sunset clause, it does take away our ability to tweak it somewhat because of Senate Bill 180, which basically says if you're under any emergency order, as our location under any governor's emergency order, you cannot make your codes more restrictive during an extensive time period. It's currently 180 days. So that this allows us to reimagine a little bit as part of the whole sign code change. But we didn't want to keep people, we're offering it to you today to hopefully recommend approval because we didn't want to keep people from having some flexibility now with what could be an easy win. Consistency review has been determined to be met in all cases. Staff review, public safety, legal, and community services have reviewed it and found it to be acceptable. And we are recommending approval of this ordinance as presented. 2026-05 staff analysis and exhibits have been submitted for record.
Thank you, Gwen, appreciate it. First of all, let me make a comment.
Sure.
That I was very impressed with everything you guys did in order to really approve or go review this A-frame sign, because all the questions I had, you answered them, and you really pointed out all the concerns that really came up in my mind. So I appreciate the hard work that you guys did. Very thorough, very thorough, so I appreciate it.
Maybe so too thorough that somebody doesn't have to do all those things.
One of my biggest concerns, as you mentioned, was, you know, not hurricanes, but we have these thunderstorms that show up with 45, 50-mile-per-hour winds, and we have to educate the store owners. We're here to help, but we need to educate them to make sure that the public is not hurt during this situation.
Absolutely.
So I appreciate you bringing all those concepts. Any questions?
The violations, do they go on to code enforcement or?
So the permit, okay, so I'm not sure exactly if that's the way I would say it, but if somebody somebody's sign is found having tumbled over or left out overnight, they would get a warning from, it could be the code enforcement officer themselves, it could possibly, I'm not developing that portion of how it's going to be, like by whom it's going to be enforced. Code enforcement is now under public safety. So they have people here at night too who can also communicate in writing is what we're imagining, but we're not going to tell them how they need to do it. It could be as simple as an officer saying, oops, the business is closed, the sign is still left there, and then communicating that to the code enforcement office the next day.
So you're saying that code enforcement is going to be developing the process, or you're pushing that over to them, or who's going to develop it?
Their three-strike policy, I imagine that they can be fairly flexible with, but when it comes to revoking the permit, we would do that through our office based on written written statements as to what had happened.
Thank you.
And who was spoken with, and were they, I don't imagine that our public safety office in a minute, ever, would, ooh, we got another one, gotcha. You know, that's not the spirit of this. Why would we pass the ordinance, right? I imagine it would be an education component.
Thank you.
Oh, I just I agree with the chairman, how much work the staff has put into this. I'm really impressed with it. My other question was, I think Chuck took it, who's going to enforce it? And I didn't know that we had hired a code enforcement officer.
We have not, but the code enforcement office, well, we've had 3 in the last 2.5 years. The code enforcement duties and division has been transferred to the public safety department. It is no longer under the umbrella of community services. And
When did that occur, by the way? When did that occur?
In the last 2 weeks. About 2 weeks ago, but it is a process. It's not, I will still have a couple cases going before the magistrate because they're cases that I've worked on for a couple of years. So, but I'm excited for them to have the opportunity. I'm excited for me to be able to give you the time that you deserve, which is a great time for me to apologize for giving you your packet 2 days before a meeting. That's not the standard that we would like to continue, but this will give me an opportunity to do better for you.
I miss the old code enforcement officer.
Thank you, Glenn. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Joe?
Yeah, 2 quick questions, point of clarification. One, there is no cost for this. Once they have the sign permit, they just can do this in perpetuity as long as the business is operating and valid?
The way it's designed now is they get the permit once, and it is that $156.
That's it.
But yes, there's no 2 months later you pay another 56 unless they have had these 3 visits and warnings, et cetera. And then, you know, it's a start over once or the 56, and hopefully they learned their lesson and figured out their systems.
As long as they don't do anything bad, they're fine. The other quick question is, it talks about chalkboard markers. Does that also include, and I know this is probably nitpicking, whiteboards? Because everybody's using whiteboards now, fewer chalkboards. Oh, there you go, okay. Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you for your questions.
Stuart, you wanted a clarification or something?
Thank you, Stuart, again. I hate to jump in, but I just wanted to clarify that the assumption is that there is a basic fee for this particular A-frame sign permit, but at this point, unless the city commission actually authorizes that, it will be free.
Huh. Alrighty.
Could you repeat that, please? I didn't quite understand. So there is no permit for it, or it is?
Until it was approved.
Until the city commission authorizes for this specific program, for this specific entitlement, that there is a fee that's going to be associated with this permit. The assumption is that there will be a base fee, but what I'm saying is the city commission can say, hey, we won't have a permit fee for this. So for example, the temporary promotional activity permit that we have with the city, there's no fee associated with that either. It's in the spirit of helping to promote any
Exactly.
activity in the city.
I would be in favor of no fee.
Thank you for that clarification. Any other questions or concerns? Oh, yes, sir.
I have a question. Will it be a LED screen on there? And if so, it was plugged in, that pose like a safety
So
issue.
we discussed,
Sorry,
this
I
is
didn't
not
catch
working
that.
anymore. Can you hear me? Do you think
Yes,
it'll pick up?
yes.
Okay. So we discussed all of these types of things, whether little fairy lights would be appropriate, whether LEDs would be appropriate. Anytime you're already sticking, I wasn't
How many of
yelling.
those we got?
I know.
So you're already sticking 4 legs out, right, where they weren't before. And the prospect of adding to that a flexible cord, what people call extension cords possibly to it, is not something that we want to, not something that we want to consider at this time. Now, if the feedback is it's not of value without something like that, we have a little bit of time to possibly reconsider and work that into our permanent sign code change. But at this time, that is, we're, with monument-style signs even, they're very specific. The lighting that you can use and how often it can blink or change is very, very specific for a reason. We're trying not to distract people who are driving who should be driving. But this is more to grab pedestrians or, be something that sticks out that causes somebody to pull in.
Appreciate it. Any other questions or concerns? Alrighty. Do we have a motion?
I move to recommend approval of ordinance 2025-05 as presented.
Excuse me, but it's 2026-05.
I'm sorry. 2026-05. My apologies.
Second? Second?
I second.
Who did the second? I can't.
Guy.
Okay,
Decide.
thank you.
Alrighty. Sherry, you want to make a roll call?
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. Desai?
Yes.
Mr. Bryan?
Yes.
Mr. Lilly?
Yes.
Mr. Pollard?
Yes.
Great. All right. Thank you all so much. Is there any other questions or concerns? If that's the case,